Hello, in this short video I want to look at the bug fixes that have been shipped as part of the 063 release of Chocolatey Central Management. So looking at the release notes, which you can find on docs.chocolatey.org, there were 6 bug fixes fixed in this release, so I'm just going to go through them. So the first one is processing of messages queue does not complete when an invalid XML file is located. So what this is referring to is that as part of the processing of Chocolatey agent information, what happens is that XML files will be created within this C program data Chocolatey services computer information messages folder. So as the machines are reporting in, an XML file is placed here and then it's processed and the information is added to the database. Now, what we found was that if for some reason one of those XML files was corrupt, what it would end up happening is that it would stay in this folder. It wouldn't be processed. Now, the problem with that is that the messages in here are processed in alphabetical order. And that's part of the issue that will be addressed in a future release of CCM. But essentially, what would happen is that any messages ahead of that message in the queue alphabetically would be processed, but any messages after that would not get processed. So the change that we've made in the interim is to attempt to process all the messages, and if there's any problem with any particular message, just ignore it and move on to the next one. So as a result of this change, all messages will be processed, but there are upcoming changes that we want to do to address the processing so that it's done in a much cleaner and succinct way, and it doesn't attempt to reprocess multiple messages again and again. But for now, it will allow all machines to report into CCM correctly. There's a fix regarding the only one concurrent login per user. So what that's referring to is if we go over to Chocolatey Central Management here, and we look at the administration settings. Now, if I were to look at user management and the security, sorry, there's a setting here which is only one concurrent login per user. By default, that's disabled, but if you were to enable that and then save that and then attempt to log out of the system, or if you were to log out of the system and then attempt to log in again, you'll see on this machine where I currently still have that version installed, then it's going to cause a problem because I can't get logged back in again. So you will need to upload or update to the latest version of 063 of the website in order for that setting to correctly work. So I'm just going to do that while I'm talking just now, and we'll go back and we'll look at the other items that are on the list. Error shown when navigating to certain pages within the CCM Web UI. Now, this one I can't demonstrate to you, but I'll try and explain what was going on. There's a certain scenario where if you have got a different folder specified for your cache location within Chocolatey, that could then be utilized as the temp folder within the ASP.NET site that is the CCM website. Now, the problem there is that the default application pool that the CCM website is running under doesn't have access to write files to that folder. Now, the problem with that is that within CCM, when there is a large response that needs to be returned to the client, what the CCM website is going to do is it's going to first serialize that file to disk into that temp folder, and then it's going to stream the contents from that location to the client machine within the web browser. Now, the problem there is that it's not able to create that serialized file on disk, so it fails. So the majority of the CCM website functions. It's only when there is a large response that needs to be sent to the client that it will fail. So that system, that bug has been addressed. Unfortunately, like I say, I can't show you that problem in action because I would need to have a big response that needs to be sent, and the system that I have here isn't set up to in a state that I could be able to easily reproduce that. But having updated that to the 063, I should now be able to log in here correctly. So I'm at 063, I'm logged in, and that administrative setting, which was in the security section, is still enabled, but that's correctly working now, where it wasn't before. That was error navigating. So users are unable to change the is outdated status. So one of the requests that we had was that if you have a piece of software in the system that's currently marked as outdated, it would be useful to be able to change that. So if I were to look at the actions that are available on a piece of software by default, it's only I can only look at the details of a piece of software. I can't see any other options. But if I go into administration and I go to, sorry, not settings, if I go to roles and I modify the roles for the CCM admin user, I can scroll down at the bottom here and I can say, I can add the options for delete and edit software. So what that allows me to do, I go back to software now, then in here, I should be able to click on edit. And then in here, I should be able to change the is outdated status so it's no longer marked as is outdated. Now, the reason you might want to do that is that there is, due to the way that the Choco outdated system works, it is possible that by having even temporarily a different source enabled, it is possible for packages to be marked as outdated when they're not intended to be marked as outdated. So this function allows us, or allows the user, to control when a bit of software is being marked as outdated. Now bear in mind that depending on how your client machines are set up, they may then once again override that setting to mark it as is outdated. So you just need to be careful with that. And it's typically down to the sources that are available on client machines marking a package as outdated when it's not intended to. And related to that, we also added or more specifically, the ability to delete a bit of software wasn't working previously. So if I go in here and, for example, delete this one, it would get to this screen and it wouldn't work. But now I can delete that bit of software. Bear in mind, as your Chocolatey agents report back into CCM, they may well put that bit of software back in play because it is still available in the system, but it is now working where the CCM website wasn't allowing that bit of software to be deleted previously. Now, similar to an issue that was addressed in 062, if I were to go into a report for outdated software, what we found was that it was incorrectly showing the total number of entries here. There was a follow-up issue, which if I drilled down into a bit of software, into a outdated software report, they would also incorrectly show the total number of entries here. So that's been addressed. So if you have got a system that has greater than 10 outdated bits of software across multiple machines, then it will now correctly reflect the total number of reports in the system rather than not allowing you to see them. So those are the bugs that have come up in the 063 release of CCM. If you do find any other problems with CCM, do feel free to reach out via support, and we'll do our very best to get those things addressed. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this has been useful.